Welcome to the Town of Avon Board of Zoning Appeals meeting. If you are interested in having a copy of the agenda or the staff reports, they're available to the tables to the right of the audience. This meeting is being recorded for the public record. Because of this, we request that personal conversations are kept to a minimum and all cell phones are set to vibrate with any phone calls taken outside of the chambers. If you are interested in commenting during any public hearing, please sign up on the sheets located on the tables to the right of the audience. When your name is called, please step forward to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Please address your comments to the board and not to staff or the appellant. Your comments should relate directly to the case at hand. We do understand that there may be several persons who wish to speak. The chair may therefore impose a time limit for each person. Federal law requires that the town make available to all attendees a Title VI public involvement survey. These surveys are on the table to the right of the audience. Members of the public who wish to complete this survey may do so and place them in the designated area. If because of a disability, any person in attendance needs assistance or accommodation to fully participate in this meeting, please notify staff. Thank you for your assistance in facilitating a respectful, fair, and timely meeting. Again, welcome to our meeting. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And may we have attendance, please?
Paul Guckenberger.
Here.
Ann Inman.
Here.
Catherine Ransberg.
Here.
Marcy Tashler.
Here.
Marcus Turner.
Here. First item is the minutes for January 21st, 2025. Were there any comments, corrections, concerns? If there are none, we'll entertain a motion.
I move we accept the meeting minutes from January 21st, 2025 as submitted.
A motion by Mrs. Ransberg. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mrs. Inman. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Minutes are approved. Requests for continuances or agenda modifications? Paul?
Thank you, Chairperson Turner. Staff has two requests for continuances of petitions SE 2405 and VAR 2407 at 7893 East US Highway 36. The petitioner has requested that these petitions again be continued. This property is part of the Lowe's overall property, and in reviewing this case and investigating the previous approvals, staff found that there is an outstanding issue related to prior approvals at the Lowe's property, requiring that Lowe's provide an access drive connection to Vista Parkway, which the town feels is important. We have had discussions with representatives from Lowe's. We were on a call with representatives from them. I think it was the week before last. And they plan to take that up the chain at Lowe's, and being a big corporation, I guess not surprised we haven't heard anything back quite yet. So staff is supporting the request for continuance, hoping that we can find some resolution to that issue. And to that end, we suggested that it would probably be better to continue this for 2 months instead of just 1 month. So the petitioner agreed and indicated that they would request a continuance. I said that I would make that request for them to the April 15th hearing, and that would be without additional published notice, but would still require mailed notice to be sent by the petitioner.
So is this an old issue that should have been addressed earlier?
Yeah, it dates back more than 20 years, but was an issue when a somewhat similar request was made back in the 2000s to create an outlot in front of the Lowe's property, and it did not get resolved then. But it was an important issue to the Plan Commission that heard those requests. So the town still has the same concerns, and we're hoping to get it resolved this time before this goes forward.
This will be our third continuance?
I believe that's correct.
What is the pleasure of the board?
Well, I think before anything happens on that property, this road issue's got to be rectified. So I'd be in favor of pushing it off 2 more months.
We'll entertain a motion.
I'll move that we push forward 2 months the Dutch Brothers coffee variances.
And can we modify this as with special exception also?
With special exception
And a special exception.
and a special exception,
Second.
2 months.
April 15th.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion by Mrs. Inman and a second by Mrs. Ransberg. Any discussion? And I believe Paul's recommendation was to do this without requirement for further notice, public note or mailed notice.
We don't think it would require additional published notice.
Published
but
notice,
I
sorry.
don't believe that the commissioner has sent mailed notice because they didn't anticipate it going forward previously. So I believe they'll still need to send out notice for that date if they're ready to go forward, if they think they'll be ready to go forward then.
So this is
So
without
it would
further
be-
published notice.
Yeah, with mailed notice by the petitioner.
Do we need to make that a formal part of our motion? No? Okay.
No, that's a state law requirement, so they have to meet that regardless.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Guckenberger,
4.
Inman. 4. Ransberg,
4.
Tashler,
4.
Turner.
4. Next item is public comment. Does anyone wish to address the board? And with no one coming forward, we will close public comment. So now we've rearranged, now that we've cleared off old business, we will go straight into new business. So this is special exception 25-01, Ray Skillman Automotive of Avon.
Second, I don't know why it's not pulling up. Can we take a brief recess so I can mute the mic?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Back online? Okay, thank you. You may continue.
Okay, the first case is SC 2501, which is Ray Skillman's special exception to provide for a auto sales facility with leasing and service. It is at the southeast corner of County Road 900 as well and US 36. The overall tract is over 27 acres. They have a plat pending to split out their parcel of land, which would be 6.11 acres. This is kind of zoomed out intentionally. The subject site's here in white, and then the other dealerships along here is what I'm gonna be pointing to. So that's why this aerial photo is a little bit zoomed out. But this is the subject site. Move to the back here. The overall 27 acres is this larger parcel here, which I believe the petitioner's presentation will show that a little bit better. There's some history to this site. In 2015, they received a special exception for the same use, and also a variance of development standards to allow them to exceed the maximum setback in Tier 1, as well as the 2 rows of parking in the front, which is the subject of the 2 variances you're going to hear next. They were all approved in 2015 by this board, but they have expired because they were not, construction didn't commence within 1 year. This was the site plan back in 2015. So it showed 2 main dealerships here and another small building here. I'm not sure if that was a dealership. Then it showed another building back here. This is the existing collision center down here. What we're speaking about today is these 2 buildings, lot 1, 2, and 4. So I'm kind of outlining it there out of that 2015 site. And that is what this is, a standard dealership with quite a bit of parking for display sales, similar to the layout they had in 2015. The site did have some more zoning history that I did not include from 2008, which was for a auto or a car wash. It's called Lucas Oil Car Wash, and it was also approved, but again, construction never happened. Staff's review of this is we found that the US 36 corridor is the primary location for auto sales, leasing, and service within the town. This would be a logical expansion of auto sales along US 36. The UDO indicates that the auto sales should be in the US 36 corridor where the comp plan says area retail. And this map, and it's kind of hard to see on the side screen, a little bit better on the screen behind you, shows the comp plan, and the area retail is to the east and northeast, or sorry, to the west and northwest of the subject site. So this is the subject site here, and this orangey blob is the area retail from the comp plan. Then this site does not have any recommendation per se. This is the only other nearby category being wellness. The comp plan does say that logical expansions to that area retail were permitted and as well as expected when reviewing this. So the area shown as the cluster of orange should not be taken literally, but could be expanded if needed. And we believe that this is a logical expansion of that area retail. There are 4 required findings for a special exception, and then 3 additional findings that you traditionally see for a commercial special exception. These are the first 4: that it not be detrimental to the public health, safety, or general welfare, not injurious to the use of and enjoyment of adjacent properties, or diminish their values. Adequately serve public facility. It's adequately served by public facilities, highways, streets, police, fire. Not create additional public expense for public facilities or be detrimental to economic welfare of the area. Then the 3 optional findings: meets the standards of the UDO, which it does, with the exception of the 2 variances you're going to be hearing next. Makes adequate provisions for public services, traffic control, light, air, recreation, visual enjoyment, and that it aligns with the general objectives to the comprehensive plan. We do believe that the Proposed use would not negatively impact the public or the surrounding neighborhood, given that it would develop similar to the other developments in the area. We do believe it would not be detrimental to the economic welfare of the community at large, that it meets the UDO with the exception of the 2 variances being considered tonight and previously granted to the site. It's compatible with its surroundings, and the comprehensive plan as a whole does support commercial zoning of the site, which it is zoned. So we are recommending approval of the special exception to have the automotive sales leasing service facility. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions for staff?
It looks like there was a request to do something similar in 2015, is that correct? And do we know why that didn't happen?
Probably have to ask the petitioner that question.
Okay, but this property has been under ownership of Ray Skillman for this.
Since 15, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Anything else from staff? We're ready to hear from petitioner.
Good evening.
Hopefully that'll let you advance.
Okay, thank you.
Can you point that way, not at the screen?
Okay. Good evening. My name's Derek Snyder. I'm with Crossroad Engineers, 115 North 17th Avenue, Beech Grove, Indiana, 46107. I'm here on behalf of Ray Skillman Automotive. I'm joined tonight by Justin Bunty with Ray Skillman Automotive. I'd be happy to answer a question from the BZA, or I can go ahead and run through my presentation real quick. I don't have a preference as to which you would prefer me to do first.
Please run through your presentation.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
It's not switching screen. Thank you.
Okay, so again, my name's Derek Snyder with Crossroad Engineers. I'm here on behalf of Ray Skillman Automotive. Thank you, Linda, for going through the staff report. I will attempt to get the slides to. Oh, there we go. Yeah, I think so. No, you're fine. I'm probably clicking one too many times. Okay, so to give you kind of a broader overview, the property is located on US 36 in between County Road 800 East and Ronald Reagan Parkway on the south side of US 36. More specifically, it is at the southeast corner of US 36 and County Road 900 East. As you can see, the entire property, there's a primary plat that has been submitted and is pending review. The entire property that would be the Ray Skillman Automotive of Avon commercial subdivision is outlined in yellow. The property is zoned C2. It is also located within the US 36 overlay within tiers 1, 2, and 3 for the entire property. The current land use adjacent to the property, obviously to the west, all the way from County Road 900 to, I can't think of what the next street to the west is. It's kind of slipping my mind. But obviously there are 6 auto dealerships in that area. We have the Hare Honda, the Ray Skillman Hyundai, and then several Andy Moore dealerships. Directly to the east is some commercial, Waffle House, and to the north is commercial as well. The sketch plan submitted as part of this special exception, as you can see, the special exception would apply to Lot 1, which would be a Mazda dealership. The remainder of the commercial subdivision, which again, that primary plat has been submitted and is pending review, would consist of Lot 2, which is the existing collision center located on the south side of the property, and then blocks A and B, which would be undeveloped and could be developed in the future. I'm going to skip ahead because this is for the variances. But to give you a better idea, as I said, the adjacent properties are all, at least all the properties to the west, in the immediate vicinity are all car dealerships. We have the Andy Moore Toyota, Andy Moore Avon Nissan, Ray Skillman Avon Hyundai, and then further west, there's the Hare Honda. And if you would like, I can go ahead and answer the BZA question concerning the 2015 petition. So actually, shortly after the construction plans, primary plat, all of the approvals were obtained for the what was known at the time as the Ray Skillman Avon Auto Mall. Shortly after those approvals, the property that now contains the Ray Skillman Hyundai further to the west on US 36 actually became available for purchase. And Ray Skillman Group had decided at that time that it was in their interest to purchase that property and build the Hyundai dealership on that piece of land, as opposed to moving forward with the two dealerships that were originally proposed for this site. So that's essentially what led to construction not beginning on the dealerships that were previously approved at this location. And it has remained in Ray Skillman ownership since that time. So I will be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Before we get into questions, let's go ahead and open up the public hearing. It is 6:52. Is anyone signed up to speak?
There is not anyone to speak.
Would anyone care to speak on this case? And with no one coming forward, we will close the public hearing at 6:52. We'll open it up for questions.
So just follow up, that Ray Skillman Group, sorry, that's not the right name, but had planned to do development there to begin with 2015.
Correct.
I think we heard this, been around for a while, way back then. So it's good to know that. I was wondering why they did the Hyundai and not do in this area. So this is really moving forward on those original plans at this time.
Yes, I think if I recall correctly, at 10 years, so I believe at that time there was the Hyundai, which was to be located on the lot that is currently being considered now. And then the Mazda would be on the lot to the east of there. So they built Hyundai further to the west. And now the Mazda has basically shifted to this lot for consideration.
Okay.
And the collision center would remain as is.
The setback of 250 feet from the front of the building, is that about what the Hyundai dealership is?
Yes. So all of the dealerships, and actually the image on the screen now is a pretty good indicator. You can kind of tell that all of the dealerships kind of follow in that similar alignment.
But these were obviously done prior to the new UDO, correct? No?
Many of them have the same variance.
Okay, so they had, so the variances were granted at that time for those
Yes.
as well? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think the US 36 overlay was still in effect. Maybe not the UDO maybe had not been adopted, but the overlay district that requires that creates the need for the variances for this site was in effect at the time those other dealerships were developed, I believe.
Any other discussion?
For the petition.
Okay. If there's no other discussion, we'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion. And before I make a motion, I would just want to add that I do agree with staff's report as far as their determination about the criterion and their support agreement that this meets the criterion that we consider. So I'll move that we approve SE 2501 Ray Skillman Automotive of Avon Auto Sales in Tier 1 of the US 36 overlay, southeast corner of US Highway 36 and County Road 900 East.
I'll second the motion.
A motion by Mr. Guckenberger, a second by Mrs. Inman. Is there any discussion? We'll have a roll call vote, please.
Guckenberger,
For.
Inman,
4.
Ransberg,
4.
Tashler, 4, Turner.
4. We'll move on to the variance. This is 24-0, I'm sorry, 25-01, Ray Skillman Automotive of Avon.
Okay, this is same site, same location. This is for 2 variances of development standards, and I'm going to discuss them kind of interchangeably because they are intended to essentially regulate the same requirement, which the UDO and the US 36 overlay has a maximum setback requirement of 125 feet in Tier 1. They are proposing 250-foot front setback. And then there's a limitation on 6 rows of parking in front of the building, or there's a limitation of 2 rows of parking in front of the building when they would like to have 6. Again, the same location. This is the map I wanted to get back to show you the line of dealerships, which you've already kind of pointed out with the first discussion. The setback requirement went into place in 2008, and these, I believe all of them have the same variance. 2 buildings across the street, being Bubba's and the multi-tenant one across, next to Bubba's, both have the same variance. There are 2 that are set back over here in Eden Gate subdivision, but they were done prior to the 36 overlay. The Tier 1, as you could see on the petitioner's representative's map, falls right in here somewhere. There's a little yellow line. And so it's only Tier 1, which is the grass open space area on the north side of the lot, that requires that 2-row requirement and the maximum building setback. It does not require it if you're in Tier 2, which is kind of down here where the building is. So if I go to their site plan, Tier 1 just hits the front of the building ever so slightly. So ironically, if they moved it further south, they wouldn't need the variance for the setback because it's not required in Tier 2. So if they could get the building completely out of Tier 2, the setback requirement wouldn't apply. But this is just to match it with the rest of the dealerships, which also have the same variance. the request is to have partially in tier 1. We did look at the findings. Again, the 2 separate variances, the property is zone C2, the use is permitted, but the ordinance requirement of only having 2 rows of parking in the front is to guide where parking is for standard commercial establishments, so restaurants, office buildings, banks, that sort of thing, and their accessory parking. It does not envision the primary use of automobile display when making that setback requirement and that 2-row parking requirement. So we think that there is a practical difficulty with meeting the ordinance and that it doesn't allow as much parking as is needed for this type of business, which is a permitted use in this district. The ordinance does call out outdoor display and says that it doesn't have to meet traditional elements of parking spaces, so it doesn't have to meet size, or they can like tandem stack cars for display or however they want to store them. But it doesn't call out that the parking in front of the building is not parking or doesn't qualify you to not have to meet the maximum setback. So we do believe that this business, as well as all the other ones that receive variances, do have an issue meeting the setback, and that they are required by nature to have large amounts of outdoor display, and that needs to be up in front of the building and to be able to be seen from outside the property. There are still 3 findings of fact required for a variance of development standards: that it not be injurious to the public health, safety, and morals. The use and value of the adjacent properties would not be affected, and the strict application of the UDO would result in a practical difficulty in the use of the property. And again, we believe that there is a practical difficulty in meeting that, because the ordinance wouldn't allow them to display their merchandise as the adjacent properties do. The adjacent properties would not be affected in an adverse manner because they are developed in a similar manner. Even the parking or the businesses to the south and to the east are auto-related uses. And that there would be no negative impact to the public or the surrounding property owners with an additional automobile business at this location. So staff finds that the findings of fact would be met for both variances and recommends approval. Be happy to answer any questions you have.
May I have questions for staff? And with that, we're ready to hear from the petitioner.
Thank you. Again, Derek Snyder, Crossroad Engineers, 115 North 17th Avenue, Beech Grove, Indiana. Thank you, Linda, for the favorable recommendation. As Linda had alluded to, the proposed variances are both consistent with variances that have been granted for not only this property prior to the expiration of those variances in 2015, but the properties to the west, which are all consistent with automotive lease, sales, and service. If you can go back maybe one slide, I think we had, there we go. So we have kind of a zoomed in view of that site plan that shows the setback. So we're right about 235 feet. The request was for 250 to give us a little bit of wiggle room in the event that the building needed to shift here and there a little bit. But generally speaking, the setback and the maximum number of rows of parking in front would be consistent with adjacent properties and with the previously approved variances, which have since expired. As Linda had alluded to, the approval would not be injurious because the increased amount of parking would have no negative impact to vehicular sight lines or sight distances. The parking configuration is nearly identical to the adjacent properties to the west. the use and value of the area adjacent would not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because, again, the adjacent properties are also within the US 36 overlay and also exceed both the maximum front setback and the maximum number of parking spaces allowed. And the strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance would constitute practical difficulty because it, by nature, auto dealerships need to display their inventory, and to do so, the most effective way is to display it in front. Obviously, limiting that ability would severely hamper their opportunity to operate this site as a auto dealership. So for those reasons and instances, for both variances, we believe that the statutory criteria have been met. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Before we get into questions, we're going to go ahead and open the public hearing at 7:06. Is anyone signed up?
There is not.
Would anyone like to speak? And with no one coming forward, we'll close the public hearing at 7:06. Questions, comments, discussion?
Just, so a comment, I guess, and I do agree with what the staff's report as far as their evaluation of the variances here, and primarily because when this was originally brought forward here, and even though the comp plan circle doesn't encompass this, we basically were looking at automobile dealerships in that area, and to keep them in 36. And there's a lot of discussion around that. So there's an expectation that Ray Skillman was going to build back in 2015, and it didn't happen, on this property here. So I think it's consistent with, even though I believe no one case sets a precedent for any follow-on case, that it still is consistent design with the setback, that we have a uniform look there with the same number of parking rows as the rest of the car dealership. So it makes it consistent there. I think what we've heard, we may expect to see another one of these cases come forward for the lots to the east of this. I think it's what we expected, and it's consistent with that, as well as it meets the criterion. I do agree with the practical difficulty as staff has put forward on this.
I also agree the location of the property itself lends to approval, in my opinion. If this was half a mile down the road, away from all of where we have the automobile dealership clusters, I think you'd have a much harder sell. But because this is a natural extension of what is already happening on 36, I think that staff's recommendations make sense.
I'm generally in agreement with the staff report, and if we're going to have this type of use on 36, it makes sense to have them clustered. As far as the practical difficulty under criteria 3, I do kind of cringe at the practical difficulty being centered around displaying of outdoor inventory. That gives me a little pause. However, I would note that there are 5 or 6 auto dealerships along the strip that are all configured in the same manner. And to not allow this would probably put these guys at a competitive disadvantage. So there is most definitely a practical difficulty in the use of the property.
I have a question as far as the motions. Do we need to have separate motions for the variance? There's variance A and the variance B. Can one motion encompass both, or does it need to be separate motions?
You can do a motion for both.
Okay.
In that case, I move that we approve VAR 2501 Ray Skillman Automotive Avon Variance A and VAR 2501 Ray Skillman Automotive of Avon Variance B, a variance of development standards to allow for actually, I'm going to do these separately. I I move that we approve VAR 2501 Ray Skillman Automotive of Avon Variance A, a variance of development standards to allow for a 250-foot front building setback where a maximum 125-foot setback is permitted because it will meet all the requirements for a variance of development standards under state law and subject to the approved findings of fact.
Second.
A motion by Mrs. Ransberg and a second by Mr. Guckenberger. Is there any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Guckenberger.
Four.
Inman. 4. Okay. Ransberg.
4.
Tashler. 4. Turner.
4.
I move that we approve VAR 2501 Ray Skillman Automotive of Avon Variance B, a variance of development standards to allow for 6 rows of parking in front of the building where a maximum of 2 rows is permitted because it will meet all of the requirements for a variance of development standards under state law and subject to the approved findings of fact.
There's a motion by Mrs. Ransberg. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mrs. Tashler. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Guckenberger.
4.
Inman. 4. Ransberg.
4.
Tashler. 4. Turner.
4. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any other business?
I just want to let you know that the additional 2 findings of fact were introduced to town council for the ordinance change. It'll be going to planning commission on Monday. So next month you will see those additional 2 variants. Well, after next month, we have to get them back in the application, but they'll be coming before you.
Fantastic. Okay. Anything else? And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.